I don't know if you're aware, but ever since I started making the ranking of Naruto games, I've played and reviewed 16 Naruto games, which means that I finished 16 Naruto games just for these videos. I mean 15. Ninja Council 3 broke me in ways I never want to talk about again. But a very common theme that I see is sequels that either have no idea how to improve upon the first game or simply making barely any improvements. When dealing with Naruto game sequels, I feel like very often we see great concepts when a new series starts, but the improvements they make on the sequel are so small that I can't help but feel disappointed. Today we're looking at a couple of sequels that I hope can break this curse, but first, a word from today's sponsor, Kaioken Clothing, the online store where we can get t-shirts, hoodies, or masks inspired by your favorite anime shows. This hoodie I'm wearing today is also from Kaioken Clothing. They also have, of course, quite a few Naruto items like the QB mask or one of my personal favorites, the Yondaime hoodie. Better yet, check out the remixed Yondaime hoodie. That's right, Kaioken Clothing has a full remix section with alternate takes on character designs that make them look a lot cooler in many cases. When you're ready to buy something, use promo code Globku at checkout. You'll get 10% off with free shipping on top of that. Thank you Kaioken Clothing for sponsoring this video. And now, it's time for Path of the Ninja 2. I actually ranked the first Path of Ninja somewhat recently, and I was expecting a big dumpster fire out of that game, but turns out it was a decent retro RPG. Of course, it being a retro RPG meant it being full of outdated mechanics, and yes, it does look like it was made in RPG Maker, but still, better than expected. D rank. Now, was Path of the Ninja 2 any better? Short answer, yes. They improved on a lot of stuff, and then they dropped the ball on some really basic stuff too. At first, it looks very similar to the first game. It's the same engine, same sprites, but don't let this first impression fool you. They did a lot of work to make it look better overall. First of all, the top screen has a lot more information. It's a lot easier to understand the buffs you're getting from your position on the grid, the buffs you're receiving from your team formation, as well as the buffs and debuffs applied during battle. On top of that, utilizing a couple of visual tricks, the game has become somewhat more cinematic. With critical attacks zooming in on characters, you have camera pans for bigger jutsu. It just feels a lot more dynamic overall. Gameplay-wise, they added a few systems that give you a lot more options in combat. You have way more playable characters, which makes choosing your team something you need to consider based on each character's strengths and weaknesses. You can also choose a team leader, and each character will have different benefits to choosing them as your team leader. Also, you can now take 4 characters into battle. 3 of them are active, but at any point you can swap to the character on the bench. And now you also have summons, which replace your entire team with a summoned creature. So far so good, massive improvements over the first game, but it's not all good news. When you die, you still go back to your last manual save, and previously you could save anywhere if you felt like it. Now you can only save at restore points, which is fair, but it can also mean losing a lot of progress if something goes wrong. Also, not seeing your opponent's health, especially in boss fights, is super annoying. You never know if you're 2 hits or 2 hours away from killing them. There's also a big chance that you'll miss attacks that apply status effects on bosses, and you just don't know if they're gonna work or not until you do it. And if you waste a couple of turns on a boss fight, you can say goodbye to your team in a lot of encounters. And if that happens, you're going back to your last save, which is frustrating, especially when you go through a quick time event to execute a jutsu only to see it miss completely. Some character's specialty is applying these debuffs, which makes it a game of chance when you take them into a boss battle. You never know if they're going to be effective or not. And of course, it's still an old school RPG, which means you're going to run into a lot of random encounters, but that's just the genre, I guess. Still, as far as combat goes, I think it did a lot better than the first Path of the Ninja, even if it still has a few quirks that it needed to work out. Next, let's talk about exploration. There are a few areas to explore with different themes, different enemies, different vibes, and exploring in these kinds of games is usually annoying to me precisely because of all the random encounters, and now it's even more annoying because of the new summoning jutsu system. You see, summons aren't just used in combat, they're also used in exploration. How, you ask? Well, terribly, I answer. In the first game, you learned how to break rocks, how to climb hills, how to walk on water, so you could get new chests and keep exploring the same areas but getting new stuff. As soon as you learned those things, you could just do it. You could just walk up to a place and press a button. Here, the summons are gonna take care of all of it. So after you get a summon that can walk on water, you can do it. You just have to summon it first. When you get the summon that can climb hills, you can do it. You just have to summon it first, which means when there are different obstacles ahead of you, you have to fiddle with menus just to get past them. Something that in the previous game was just a button press is now a bunch of menus to summon a creature, clear an obstacle only to summon another creature. It's so cumbersome. They've also added this little mini game to travel across different areas, which is the side scroller where you try to get as many scrolls as you can while avoiding some obstacles. It's fairly basic, but it adds variety to the gameplay gameplay, so I really like it. Story-wise, this time you don't play through the Naruto story. Instead, it's filler. I really think this was another step backwards, because I really appreciated the detail in the first game's story. There were so many minor moments that I had completely forgotten about, but Path of the Ninja went deep into that Naruto story. And I don't necessarily have anything against filler stories in Naruto games, but the plot is basically, there's an evil beast that corrupts those around them, and you gotta find 5 mirrors to seal the beast, while some filler villains try to revive it because they want power. It's just a basic boring plot, and it plays out as predictably as you'd think. And the final boss, that was some BS. Oh, I did not have a good time with this one. For instance, check this out. It is Sakura's turn, and for my turn, I am going to buff my entire team's defense with the Hidden Leaf Shield. And now it's the boss's turn. He's gonna hit my entire team with the Evil Energy, which doesn't deal damage, but look at those debuffs. Oh no, oh no, oh that's very bad. And one of those debuffs is Confusion, so Naruto is depressed for some reason. He's not gonna play. He's gonna hit us with a big attack that hits everyone, and now Sakura's paralyzed. Kiba's also depressed, so I just don't get to play. Double Destruction Mouth, please don't. Boss just healed himself, killed my entire team. In comes Hinata from the bench, and of course the boss is gonna throw his ultimate attack. My team was looking healthy before this turn. And the worst part is, that boss could have been one hit away from dying, and maybe I could have killed him with Sakura instead of buffing my team's defense, but there's no way of me knowing that, because the boss's health can't be found anywhere. After the game is done, there's still some side content to complete. Oh, before I forget, the credits music. It's decent. Anyway, after the credits, there's some side content, some combat challenges where you fight against preset teams. The game also gives you an Anbu character that you can name and level up, and then you can play with other players via DS Wi-Fi. Now, as you can imagine, it's pretty hard to play this game on DS Wi-Fi nowadays, so I can't really judge how good it actually was, but I've done some research, reading some forum threads and watching some videos, and it's pretty much what you'd expect. You take your team and fight against your opponent's team. A common complaint I saw is that you need to grind your characters to around level 80 or 90 to be able to compete, and you finish the game at around level 55, so that's a lot of grinding. And that's usually why I dislike RPGs with versus modes. It just feels like the winner is always the player with the most XP, the player who grinded the hardest, no matter how good or how clever you are. But that's just me. Overall, I do think it's a massive improvement over the first game, with a few clear downsides, those being the story, the annoyance of summoning creatures in exploration, and the outdated RPG design still persists. And it's not outdated because the game is old, it was already outdated back when the game came out. But given the battle system, the visual effects, and the content improvements, I think we're gonna rank this higher than the previous Path of the Ninja. In fact, we're gonna rank it right above Path of the Ninja. I don't think the sequel improves enough to overtake Uzumaki Chronicles 2. Let's not forget that game had the Master Puppet. And I'll be right back with our next Naruto game. Hi! We're looking at another filler story, so I guess this is the filler episode. After all, it wouldn't be a Naruto show without filler. Ultimate Ninja Heroes 2: The Phantom Fortress. I streamed a decent chunk of this one over on Twitch, so you might have caught it. If you want to watch me play some more Naruto games for this series, give me a follow. The link is down below. It's the story of a castle that shows up in Konoha and starts draining the energy of everyone around it. So Naruto and friends need to climb the castle floor by floor. They find a princess that's moving the castle, and she's gone evil and makes you fight spirits of their friends and enemies. And why is she gone evil and is draining everyone's energy? Well, I'm not gonna spoil that. The story is somewhat decent, and you can see it for yourself if you want to find out. The whole thing is voiced from start to finish in both Japanese and English. And most of the story is told through these visual novel type cutscenes with the occasional screenshots, but it does also have some really good CG cutscenes, incredibly good looking for a PSP game. Obviously the graphics look outdated nowadays, but the action, the camera work, that stuff is timeless, and it really shows that CyberConnect 2 have been the kings of anime game cutscenes for a really long time. Gameplay wise, at its core, it's an Ultimate Ninja game, which has all the upsides and downsides that we talked about in previous episodes. It's an easy to pick up 2D party style game, usually with big rosters, but also it's a mashy battle system. It's a substitution festival at higher difficulties, which makes the fights a bit boring in my opinion. But in story mode, they did switch things up, so it wouldn't just be a series of fights. The castle has different floors, and to reach the stairs to get to the next floor, you need to fill in rooms with these these scrolls, and each scroll is a different type of minigame. And just so you understand this game perfectly, we're gonna take you through all the scroll types right now. First, you have the random battles, which is just a 1v1 battle. Then you have clone class, where you have to keep track of the real Ebisu. The amusement room, where you gamble for points. The riddle room, where Iruka asks you questions about the show. And the tree climbing minigame, as well as the shadow mimic minigame from Ultimate Ninja 2. You also get new characters as you progress, so you can switch it up whenever you go into one of the battle rooms. But each character also has a unique ability to explore the castle itself. Some find hidden paths, destroy rubble blocking your way, or have abilities that change the random scrolls that you get. So far, it all sounds good. It's a really good concept, the execution sucks. This game is the definition of outstaying its welcome. 30 minutes after starting this game, I had already seen all the scroll types, and even worse, I was already getting duplicate questions from Iruka and duplicate patterns from the shadow minigame. 30 minutes in, this game stopped giving me anything new. And the minigames were fun, but they're still minigames. They're not gonna carry the 5 hours that are required to complete the story mode. And the story itself also suffers from this, because it feels stretched. It's a game with 30 minutes of content that tries to stretch it for 10 hours. Yeah, you heard it right, 10 hours. I said story mode was only 5 hours long, but after you beat story mode, you unlock a second story mode. This time you play as Jiraiya, you go through the same story, but from his perspective. Second story mode only takes you about 3 hours, but you don't really unlock any characters as you progress, which means you can't even change it up when going into the different battle rooms. And there's also no tree climbing or shadow mimic mini games because you don't have Naruto or Shikamaru in your party. Iruka does have new questions, so there's that at least. And then the rest of your time can be spent in Heroes mode, where you select a team of 2 or 3 characters and fight against other teams. It's fun discovering the secret teams because if you pick a team that has a common theme, it actually gives you a bonus and it gives you a skill that you can use before the battle. This might sound very familiar to you because this is exactly what Ultimate Ninja Heroes was. You know, the first game, we reviewed it a couple of episodes back. Funny story about that, Heroes 2 was actually the first Heroes game in Japan. It was called Ultimate Ninja Heroes Portable Castle or something. The first Ultimate Ninja Heroes that came out in the West, the one we reviewed a couple of episodes back, never came out in Japan. Why? Oh, I'll tell you why. They took this castle game we reviewed today, removed the entire castle story, and just released it. They released a single game mode in this game we reviewed today as its own full game. And then, after that, they had the audacity of releasing Phantom Fortress as a sequel, as if the other game was okay. This would never fly nowadays. Overall, I kinda liked it. The game has good ideas, but also terrible execution. It's a game that outstayed its welcome and everything suffers because of it. The story feels stretched, and the castle gameplay gets boring even if it was interesting at first. That said, with that story mode and the castle game mode and all of that, it's already gonna be a full rank above the first game. I'm gonna put it at D rank, right above Clash of Ninja, but below Uzumaki Chronicles. And those 3 games right there all have great ideas and terrible execution. And I'll be damned if that doesn't sum up perfectly what Naruto games are. We're almost done with Naruto games. I believe we only have 3 Naruto games left before we move on to Naruto Shippuden. So, I'm not gonna ask you guys what you want to see next because I kinda don't have many choices here, but I am gonna ask you to check out today's sponsor, Kaioken Clothing, link down below, code Globku for a 10% discount. And also down below, you'll find a link to my Twitch. Give me a follow and you'll see what's coming next. And as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku and I'll see you next time. Bye!